And after 30 years of being the hardest rock on the mountain, I give you Rude Awakening!
So, a long time ago, in October of 1992, in the little burg of Moscow, Pennsylvania, a band was born. I was looking for a band, and someone had recommended to me that there were a bunch of guys that were practicing, but they didn't have a lead singer, and they needed one. I went over to their practice, asked them what song they knew, and the song was called Mississippi Queen. So I knew the song. We ran through it. Everybody was pleased with my performance and said, okay, you're in. I thought, these guys have a lot of potential. Let's see if we can put something together. Within 6 months, we came up with a new name for the band. The name of the band was going to be Rude Awakening. We bought some sound equipment so that we could perform live. And there was a local bar at the time that was the venue to play at. It was called Doc's Hard Rock Cafe. So we learned a bunch of songs, all classic rock, everything from Deep Purple to Grand Funk Railroad to Black Sabbath, AC/DC, that kind of genre of music. And we went out and had our first show, I believe it was April of 1993. At that time, there was only one other band in the area performing, and we were a hit. We packed the bar, and that was the beginning of the 28-year odyssey. No one realized that we were going to, with hiatuses and fights and band breakups and so on and so forth, that we were going to finally just this past November do our farewell show, not leaving future reunions out of the picture. We had a long and storied career as far as performing locally at many different places in the Poconos. So then it was always about evolving and getting better and performing better. Quite a few years we practiced 2 and 3 times a week, and then grunge really hit around here, so we started learning songs by like Pearl Jam and Stone Temple Pilots, Alice in Chains into our set list, along with the classic rock. And then we reached a point, probably around 97, where things had become somewhat stale. We got some new people in, some fresh blood, and this was around 99. I suggested that instead of just playing some grunge and some classic rock, because the music again was evolving, Godsmack, Oleander, and Limp Bizkit, and Rage Against the Machine had come onto the scene. I suggested grunge combo format, abandon that, and go strictly contemporary music of what would be the early 2000s. It was a gamble, and in order to do that, we took almost 4 months of not performing out, learning all these new songs. And there was a bar that had just opened called the Why Not? And it was a hot new bar, hot new venue. We decided, I went down and I got us a gig booked there, and we decided to give this a try. We started performing at the Why Not? We did our first show. Again, it was just right place, right time. The place was packed. And for the next 4 years, I came up with the moniker, the hardest rock on the mountain, because we were very heavy, rhythm, lead, bass, drums, and myself. We played a lot of Rage Against the Machine, a lot of Limp Bizkit, a lot of high energy music that really got the crowd pumped. We were ahead of our time, at least in this area. And then somewhere around 2005, it started again to get stale. There were some interpersonal conflicts with members of the band. We broke up. So from 2005 to 2009, basically no one spoke. 2009, I received a phone call from my drummer, Darren Muro. He said, "Do you think we're mature enough to give it another go?" And I said, "I'm ready." All got together, had a practice, and it was back to work. In the early days, it was flyers printed out, primitive printers, and then stuck up all over town. Now it was Facebook at our command, and we could reach everybody and let them know that we were back together and that we were planning a reunion show. So we did a reunion show, which was a huge success. I believe it was March of 2010. We didn't know if we were going to continue to play or not, and then we got a gig at Mohegan Sun at Bar Louie, which carried us to do that show. That was in September of that year. So we practiced in earnest and went down there, did a show there, and then we started playing some local bars. That carried on, and we were kind of on and off. I had gotten involved with another band called Warhorse, so I was playing with them. Rude Awakening kind of, for me, took a back seat for a few years.
Hi, I'm Chris Bone. I'm one of the guitarists in Rude Awakening. I met Al Mancuso ending middle school, beginning high school, became friends. We had a different project called Warhorse. It was a kind of a spur-of-the-moment battle of the bands thing at North Pocono High School. I knew Al did some work. I didn't know the extent, but I knew he did some AC/DC covers, and loving classic rock and AC/DC. I asked if he would join us. He was gracious enough to do that. We had a great turnout, a lot of fun at the talent show. Went and moved into an actual band from there. So a few years with that project. I had seen Rude Awakening play during that time. I had seen one of their reunion shows. After Warhorse concluded, we had a few years. There wasn't really any specific project going on. Al had approached me and asked about getting that band back together. They were doing some practices. They had some things lined up, and he asked if I would come to practice with them. This is early, mid-2017. So I'm happy to do so. I hadn't really been doing too much musically. I joined them at a practice. Got together, got to feel the room, got to talk to the guys, and had a lot of fun. Really clicked together. We had a lot of good chemistry. Like the same kind of music again, the classic rock, the 80s metal, 90s stuff, 2000s, some of the grunge. Not my favorite type of music, but something that's definitely grown on me after I've started playing it with these guys. They were gracious enough to ask me if I wanted to join the band. So happy to do so. Happy to come in and give some new insight. Just basically play around with the same kind of music I've always loved to play. I joined the band around mid-2017. We started playing some shows at our place. Did a few private parties, a bar in Hamlin. Had a ton of fun. It was great being up on stage with these guys. Again, there's just a certain type of energy when you're playing with people who share the same drive and motivation for that kind of music. It's different. Did a few shows, started to really feel that we could do more. At this point, we had 3 guitars, plus a bass, drums, and Al on the vocals. So we added some more intricate songs, got into some more technical guitar parts that typical bar bands aren't going to play or they'll condense. So just had a lot of fun really, getting into everything at practice and really challenging each other technically and seeing what we could do and pushing the limits. We had the capability to kind of take the production level to the next phase.
I'm Christina Evans, aka Babs, as most people know me. That all started back 2015, 2016, and it all started with Warhorse. I kind of walked into the middle of that project. There were 2 other classmates of Chris's that were running lights, and I kind of joined in there, and I learned the basics of how to run the lights, and then I got curious and I wanted to learn more and become more creative, and we started making the light programs for Warhorse more creative. When Warhorse ended, Rude Awakening got back together, and that's when the lights really took off. Spent thousands of dollars on the all new lights. We went with an all new lighting program. Fortunately, I had the basis down, but I still had to learn the program, which was by trial and error. I basically, in this very room, night after night after night, for an hour, 2 hours each night, just sit here and play with the lights and figure out what each light could do, create the songs that way. And then once I had a song done, I would play it with the song, and if I saw something that I thought, well, no, I could do this and it would make it a little bit more spectacular, I would change it up. And Al was with me for a lot of this, and at the beginning we were kind of working together, and it finally got to a point where he was just kind of like a bystander. He'd give his opinion once in a while, but for the most part, I was just left to my own, and because I would just get this picture in my head of what I wanted the lights to look like for a particular song, and I just made it happen. As time went by, we did add more lights here and there, and it just helped me make the lights more spectacular, which made all of those guys look so much better, and they performed better because the lights brought that level up, and they needed to come up to that level to match the lights. And it was something to be very proud of, watching something that I created and them working together.
Then in about 2016, we started playing again in earnest. We weren't doing a lot of shows, but all of our shows were quality. We had really hit our creative zenith by, say, 2018.
As we got into 2018, we played a few more shows. The amount of time that we had spent together, we had talked briefly about writing original music. Did we want to take the band into different covers? How did we want to proceed into the future? It didn't seem that we had a lot of options for expanding unless we really wanted to devote full time. This has always been a fun side hobby. None of us are touring musicians or to play out 5 nights of the week.
We all decided to do, in November of 2019, a farewell show. We went out, we did the farewell show. The timing of it was perfect. And here we are now in 2020, mid-pandemic.
Yeah!